one of the things that we're really excited to talk about is kind of the growth, the emergence, the mainstreamification, let's call it, of esports over the last decade. And for many of you traditional sports fans in this room, you might know a building called Maple Leaf Gardens, now called the Adamou Center, and Adam's Call of Duty team and Overwatch team have actually sold out that building on multiple occasions to record-breaking crowds. So, Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of the rise and mainstreamification of the esports industry, maybe over the past 5 to 10 years, and kind of how we got to where we are today?
Yeah, well, look, esports goes back actually over 20 years now. It kind of it reminds me a little bit about the similar kind of startup to hip hop music, where it happened kind of in urban centers in New York and Los Angeles, in Chicago and Detroit. It wasn't kind of a top down corporate development. In hip hop, it kind of came from the ground up, and then it professionalized over time, and now everybody listens to hip hop. Esports happened in the same way, kind of in the back rooms, in the basements of Korea, Denmark. Would I say probably be the two biggest kind of initial markets, and people used to just get together and connect their PCs or their consoles and play games against each other, and then other people started to come and watch those guys play, and it grew from there into a global phenomenon where our teams, just our teams, have been watched by over 50 million people in 2023. So it's a big business. It's developed it's developed in a major way over the course of the last 20 years. I would say there's been two major pivots that have happened in the last 5 years. And I think one pivot that is happening right now and one pivot that happened about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the powers that be in esports decided that esports would become like sports, traditional sports, with franchises and leagues and Toronto Defiant teams with local markets and so forth. And there's a lot of investment that was put into that approach. And I would say, it's been successful in terms of opening up a lot of eyeballs to esports globally, and in fact, it was foundational in our startup. But that model is not going to work, and so esports has to kind of transition away from that model. And the reason that model is not going to work is for the same reason that sports, traditional sports, is going to be in some difficulty at some point as well, and maybe it's already starting. And that model requires media rights or broadcast rights to fund everything, right? That's the whole basis of a franchise league and the revenue share system. And media rights don't exist on the internet in the same way that they exist if you've got a cable broadcaster out there. I mean, the cable industry, ESPN, Sportsnet, everybody else in the US as well, funds sports, okay? And with all due respect to betting, I think, those kind of broadcast rights is the biggest and most important factor in there. And when we tried to basically move towards that model, we really kind of were counting on those broadcast rates, and we got them. The first years of the Overwatch League, we signed a deal with Twitch that was worth over $100 million, right? And then Call of Duty came in, and we moved to YouTube, and that deal was over $120 million, right? But over time, on an online world, there's no reason for them to pay you. They've got unlimited content. Why do they need your content? People will watch something else if they're not going to watch you. And then we've also seen competitors out there, from Netflix to Hulu to Disney there's all sorts of streaming services out there, and they're all losing money, okay? And so, the revenue from the online world is a fraction of what it is in the cable world. And we are about 10 years ahead of where traditional sports is now. And what we are doing right now in esports, particularly in our leagues, is pivoting to a different model, because we've recognized that the media rights model is not going to work for esports, and I would put to you that it's not going to work for traditional sports either.